Hello, everybody. Wonderful people. Welcome to the Fiedler Audio live stream. Another masterclass with Mr. Thomas Fiedler himself. Here
Hello,
he
everyone.
is.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine. And you?
I'm excited because today we are all going to learn, the specifics and the fine art of creating gapless albums in Dolby Atmos, and you will guide us through the process and also explain what happens and has to be taken into consideration to make all the object settings work properly and adjust properly to get the best results. Am I correct with this?
Yes, of course. We
Okay.
will go look into all the details, what has to be taken into account for making good crossfades.
Wonderful. So I would say, without any further ado, if you don't have to add anything before we get into the specials, into the details, I would say, Thomas, then please take over the screen and the stream is yours.
Thank you. Okay, now then let me share. Now you should see the mastering console. Yeah. Some people might ask, why are we talking about crossfades? It should be fairly simple. And well, if it would be only about crossfading volume, you would be right. But in Dolby Atmos, as we know, there's more to that. So just let me load one of my prepared sessions. And what you can see here are two small ADM files in that session. And basically, when we look at the editor, we can see that both of these clips have just one object inside. And when we look on the timeline, in the first clip, the object is panned to the left speaker. And in the second clip, it's panned to the right speakers. So, but both objects are basically on the same channel. So if we go through in the first, well, it's called object left. That means that is the ADM file where the object here on channel 11 is panned to the left. And in the second one, it's panned to the right channel. So now the question is, what happens when you crossfade them? Because when you crossfade an ADM file, then the channels which correspond to the same channel index here, what you can see on the left side, they will be crossfaded. And so it's not only volume, but it's also position. So let's do a quick crossfade here by just taking the second clip, do some, pull that over to get some overlapping, and then create a crossfade, and just let's do the auto split function to really get the region setting to that place. Or better said, let's delete this, and we have just one region. So, and the crossfade is happening here. It doesn't matter if it is split or not. It's just easier to see, because now when we switch over to the editor, we can see that we have one region, and it contains both ADM files, and they are members, and we have objects in the same channel. So now not only audio is crossfaded, but also the object positions. What does it mean? Let's switch to all objects equally so that we always see the object. And now, as we can see here, in the middle is the crossfade, and I will now hit play, and then you will see what happens. So that's fairly straightforward. So that means when the playback passes through the region where the crossfade is going on, the position is interpolated between the beginning of the crossfade and the end. So, or better said, between the beginning of the overlap and the end of the overlap, because of course you can also do change the fades of each of the member clips, but when it comes to the object position, then we can let's zoom in a little bit here, so that we have the overlapping region here, or the overlapping part of this region. You can adjust the volume fades, which these curves stand for, in any way you like, but it doesn't influence the position of the object or the interpolation of the object. So basically what happens is the mastering console does the following thing. It takes the position of the object at the beginning of this overlap from the first clip, and at the end of the overlap, the position is taken from the second clip. And between these two values, the position is interpolated. So if you have a look here on the lower right side, when I hit play and it passes through the overlap section, you can see that during this passing through, it moves from one side to the other. This is fairly straightforward. And of course, what you can see here is that each object will be treated in such way. So what you might want to check is that you basically match channels where there is not so much movement between one and the other position. I mean, that's okay, but if you have, for example, objects in positions which are completely opposite to each other in terms of the room, like for example, one is in the front left corner and the other is in the rear right corner, then the interpolation will basically move through the head. So you might want to check that, which is very easy to do. You can go over here to the 3D view, and well, now there's only one channel, so you have only one set of controls here, which is hide and focus. But if you have if you want to basically focus on certain elements, you can select them in this list, click focus, and then you will only see them. So you can basically visualize where is the object and what happens during this crossover. And it's of course a good idea to not have many channels move through the head during the crossfade, because then for this instance where it's basically in the middle of this the overlapping region, these objects will basically sound like inside the head. And if you're on speakers, then it will come from all sides, from all speakers. That might be an effect which you don't want. Okay, that's for that. Now the second thing is, what happens with bats? For that, to demonstrate that, we can open the second session, which I have prepared here. And on the first glance, it looks equal, but it's not. If we switch over to the editor, we can see that the first clip or region, and at this moment, because we are in album mode, the first clip has a bat, a 712 bat, and the second clip is again an object. So if we have two bats and they are equal, like, then the case is quite trivial, because each channel is in the same position, so the position doesn't matter, and only the volume has to be crossfaded. But now we have the situation that we have, in the first clip, we have a bed, and the second we have an object. Okay, I will show you what happens now. Let's do the same thing as we did in the first session. So let's create some overlap. Let's create the crossfade, and let's just merge everything, and then we have just one big and beautiful region. And when we switch over to the editor, we can see, okay, we have the bed in channel 1 to 10, and we have the object in channel 11. If we hit play now, then there will not be, then basically the bed of the first clip will be faded to silence, and the object of the second clip will be faded in from silence into the point where it has a full sound. So that's not very interesting, because actually nothing is crossfaded, so to speak. It works sonically like a crossfade, but since these channels are completely independent from each other, there is nothing fancy going on. So to make something fancy going on, let's switch the positions of the member clips, just for the sake of demonstrating. So let's move this bed down to channel 11. And let's move this object down to channel 12. Now, as you can see, we have the bed starting in channel 11, and almost all of those channels are pink. When they are pink, that means they are silent. So we only have only signal in channel on the right side. That's why it's called object in bed right. So it's basically there's only signal in the right channel, and this is the other this is the other clip where the object is positioned in the left channel. So now let's switch over to the start here. One more thing, as you can see, we are basically mixing an object with a bed inside this region. So the region deduces everything to become an object bed, so to say. What it does, it creates objects for each bed channel in the same position as the bed channel originally is, so the sound doesn't change when it comes to position rendering. And well, we have a problem here with the LFE, because an LFE is not really an object, cannot be converted to become a dynamic object in a meaningful way. So it's marked in red, which means this is something you might want to take care of. There are other things which you can do to do so, but for the sake of this demonstration, we don't care for that issue now. And so let's switch over to the 3D view and hit play again to see what happens. So remember, the first clip is the object bed, or it's the bed which is converted to objects, and the second clip only contains the one object. So let's hit play. Okay, so what you can see now is that the resulting object in the region is moved from the right side to the left side. And this is because this is the right bed channel, and the object in the second clip is on the left side. So it basically happens the same thing as if we have the two objects, one on the left and one on the right side. And now here we can demonstrate further what I meant with hide and focus. Now we know that channel 2 is the channel where the magic happens. So let's focus it. And when we focus it, we only see that everything else is hidden. And if I hit play now, we can see how this object moves from one side to the other. So that's something we can take into account when we have, for some reason, it's actually a rare case, but if for some reason we have to mix objects and bed, you can see that it still works. Okay. Now what happens when you have beds with different layouts? That's another thing. Let's go there. Let's close that and open this one here. Okay, here we have three different clips. and they are arranged in one session. So let's reset this, and let's put that back here to channel 1, which was the original position of it. If we switch to the second transition, we can see that we basically have 3 clips. The first clip has a stereo bed, the second clip has a 5.1 bed, and the third clip has a 7.1 bed. So, and we also can see that now enforce gapless layout is active, which is important to get a gapless in case you need it to ensure that we have a gapless encoding, or that the ADM can be encoded gaplessly. It's not necessary in this sessions because we have only one big region, and this region contains clips with different bed layouts, so it defaults to a 7.1.2 bed on the region level. So that's why the gapless indicator still shows yes. But we have a problem here. We can see that, especially in the second transition, we can see that channel types mix, which are not really in the same position. So we would also see that there is maybe something going on which we don't like. And to actually completely and totally be sure that everything is done correctly, we can have we have a built-in function in an upcoming release of the mastering console, which is bed upmix. So any bed which is not 7.1.2 can be upmixed to a 7.1.2 bed. This has several use cases or several possible applications, and one of them is to create crossfades. So we could basically now say, okay, we just crossfade the clips here. We create overlapping here. Let's do some crossfades. Now we have it made in a meaningful way. Let's do some zooming in, then we can see it better. And now we have a crossfades between these 3 clips. And when we upmix a bed, each of these channels will then be mixed to the composite, to the region in the right position with the right amount. So in case of the 5.1 bed, we have the surround channels, which when we don't upmix it are shown in red, because in the region they go to left side surround and right side surround, which usually are in different positions. So and to get this to actually be positioned in a better way, if you will, the upmix, when you upmix the bed, it becomes green, and the left surround and the right surround are equally distributed between the sides and the rear channels with an attenuation of 3 dB. So they are basically mixed to the side channels and the rear channels. And now if you do a crossfade, then the positions are correct. So according to the Dolby standard. This is something new, which is also about to be certified by Dolby, this upmix function. And you can basically upmix anything, any bed, which is not 712. For the other 2 beds, it's not necessary, because the 7.1 bed basically matches perfectly with the first 8 channels of the 7.12 bed, because the 0.2 are just the additional 2 channels which are not here in the 7.12 bed. So in that way, you can be sure that everything is mixed correctly. And this is also true if this bed would, for example, be in another channel position. Now, if I have that down, or if I move the 7.1 bed just one channel down, now nothing actually fits anymore when it comes to the channel position. But if I create an upmix, sorry, it just switched back here in the selector. Then I can see that now everything is literally green. So each of the channels, although they are not in the correct position, will be correctly routed to the 7.1.2 bed, which is now in the first 10 channels of the region. So whenever you use the upmix function, and there is not a 712 bed in the first 10 channels, it will be created. So in that way, you can crossfade the channels in the way you want to, and everything goes to the right positions. Yeah. And as I shown before, you can basically place the playback pointer to wherever you want to see the position. Now, I don't know why there's a ball now here. Maybe because it's still a beta. Um, since we have a bed, or we have only beds, there will not be any movement visible because by upmixing the channels, they will automatically be routed to the correct positions. So the crossfading is happening already in the right positions. And yeah, and one more thing. Oh, I don't know why this ball thing now happens here. So maybe I have to finish it for a moment and come back. So here we are. One more thing I want to show is that second. As we can see on in the big list here on the left side, which represents what is going on in the region, we can see that we have mute and solo. So whenever you create a crossfade, you can solo single channels or groups of channels. So basically, you can select something, you can mute it, or you can solo it. And this helps you also to audition the transitions when they go from one place to the other. So and that way you can check whether the if you have a doubt about something, if something sounds strange in your transition, thereby you can check which channels might be the ones which are not which are doing something unwanted when it comes to interpolation of object positions. So yeah, that's basically it. It's not a really huge topic, but it's something with different finer details you might want to take into account when it comes to crossfading. So let me check the list. That's basically it. So one more thing we might want to add when it comes to volume crossfading, just if you haven't seen it yet in the tutorials or in the manual, this is not the only way to do crossfades. You can also hold down the command key on Mac or the control key on Windows and click on the handle and drag up and down to change the fade curve. They can be adjusted individually. They only, as I said before, these curves only are there for the volume, not for the object position interpolation. So you can create different curves according to taste. And by right-clicking on the handles, you can also select if it should be a single curve or if it should be an S-shaped curve, which of course you can do. You can change in its shape also with the same command or control click on the handle and dragging up and down. Yeah, that's basically it when it comes to crossfades. So if you have any questions, then please go ahead.
I was on mute, sorry. Wonderful. Thank you for that. That's pretty impressive. And especially when you could visualize what's really happening to the objects when they crossfade in the 3D view. Yeah, people, what do you think? Let us know. One gentleman, Mr. Glenn Main Music, just said that he's about to assemble an album in the very near future. So, what is your plan? Because when one is putting an album together, usually it's always good to have something like a plan to start with and come up with a concept for how to handle the transitions and what you want to achieve with that. So please let us know, or of course, if you have any other questions to Thomas, then come forward, please. Everybody's totally in awe about what's possible, and on the other hand, what might be needed to be taken into consideration when approaching this subject, a gapless Dolby Atmos album. But like in layman's terms, to make it completely, how would you call it, simple, what would happen if one would simply create some crossfades and not look into this in detail and not take care of that? I mean, nothing bad could happen. It could only be like a boring result, or what could be unwanted results?
Yeah, well, what can be unwanted? I visualized the object interpolation to make clear what is actually going on under the hood, and if you just do the crossfades and don't care about objects and object position and maybe find out what could be matching pairs of channels for a good transition, then what could happen basically is that many of your objects are interpolated going through the head. And on the way through the head, then everything becomes practically mono on headphones, because it's coming from all sides. So if you that's how the Dolby Atmos renderer basically renders the objects when they are close to the head. That's why there is the famous saying "balls to the walls," and because when you in the Dolby Atmos rendering, when you go away from being close to the walls, then what is a point source when it is at the wall gets spread out over all directions. And on speakers, it means more and more speakers are involved in playing back the source, which results in phasiness and which results in an unclear location and so forth. So this could be a very boring, I don't know, maybe an unwanted result. Let's say it like this. So, and the great thing in the mastering console is that you can actually put your hand on it and find out what actually fits together, where is the least going on in terms of positioning. The only other applications which can do crossfades more or less is the Dolby Atmos Album Assembler, but the Dolby Atmos Album Assembler is doing everything automatic. So it's basically just like what we do if you don't touch anything. I don't know if the Dolby Atmos composer, if the album assembler has all the differences, different features with the different fade curves, but when it comes to object position interpolation, it just gets going from one place to the other, but you have no control over which channel is paired with which channel from the different clips. So yeah, unwanted movements can happen. So for example, usually if you do a meaningful Dolby Atmos mix, especially when it comes to music, most things don't move, or at least they don't move a lot. They are stationary, because I mean, if you're mixing rock and pop and jazz and whatnot, you don't have all the instruments flying around your head, so that doesn't matter if it's going to move a little more or a little less. But if you have channels where there's a drums on the left and then you have a bass on the right, and they are being cross-faded, so that means the drums, while fading out, are moving to the right, and the bass, while fading in, is moving from the right side to the left, where it's actually supposed to be in the end. So that can be an experience which is irritating during the crossfade. So as a general rule of thumb, it's good to try to find matching pairs where is the least motion, and if there is a motion, that it is walls to the balls, if possible. So in that way, you will have a static experience in this crossover section, if you will, where it's faded from one song to the next, without having any irritating movements of instruments and voices and so forth in your mix, in your crossover. Of course, everything which is mixed to the bed, that is not affected, because when you crossfade from one bed to the next bed and it's really just bed to bed, then the positions, then nothing happens of this interpolation of objects, because they are not objects, they are static channels. But as soon as you use objects for single instruments and other things, that has to be taken into account to not have some unwanted movements.
Very, very interesting and definitely good to know. So, I don't know if the chat is stalled here. I just checked on the other computer. There's the same picture. So let us know, because we can see that some people are still joining, what you think, and if you have some questions, because maybe that was a lot to take in this brief time. So it would be good if we could get a little bit of feedback from you guys. And
yeah, also if you have questions about other things, you can shoot, because I see we are right now not so many people. Yeah, so if you can take also the opportunity if you have a question regarding some other topic.
So it seems that everybody's either completely awed or pretty happy. Then I think we could, in between, discuss a little bit, the aesthetics of how to handle the positioning of objects, and we would like to know. There's the thing that when you, if you are the person who puts together an entire Atmos album, in terms of you were doing the mixing as well, then usually there should be a certain style of how you use objects and what you put into which objects. That's pretty interesting. But the tricky part definitely begins when Atmos mixes from various creators will be put together, and the consistency will not be there with the handling of the objects and stuff like that. So that might be also pretty interesting and needs to be looked at. So here's a question. English Bob's House Music. Tell us about the upcoming DAC release.
Well, there will be lots of new features. Some of them which people have asked for a long time. And it will be as cool as the new mastering console, that I can promise. So you will have a lot of new creative stuff to play with, and things which, of course, again, you won't find anywhere else. And I cannot say much more right now, because we are still working on it. But we hope to give you soon some more information about it. But it will be at least as cool as the new mastering console. And if you see how much or how far the mastering console is ahead of anything else when it comes to working with ADM files and mastering Dolby Atmos, then you might get an idea of where we are heading with the Dolby Atmos composer.
I'm really looking forward to this. And Yeah, here's another question. Mr. Desert Micro, he asked the guys from Sound Particles if there was a tool that you could draw shapes and move through space, like from ceiling to the floor in a corkscrew motion. Do you guys know of anything like that? Corkscrew motion.
Yeah, it's like a spiraling down, something like this.
Okay.
No, I don't know. Well, if you asked Sound Particles, then maybe you should wait what Sound Particles answer regarding that. But what I can say from my side is that we will also update the Dolby Atmos Beam to give it more panning features and where you can do all kinds of stuff and also automate more. And yeah, you will be able to do a lot of different motion types, so to speak. So that's the only thing I can say for now. But otherwise, I don't know of any dedicated tool which can do that right now.
Cool. As I'm thinking about this question and thinking about this whole thing you said some moments before about the movement of instruments and audio signals in music mixes in Dolby Atmos. I mean, as I might be killed for this, but as a big majority of the Atmos mixes is basically just taking some stems and making it like this.
Spreading it out.
Yeah, maybe to the sides, but usually it ends when. If a possibility for presets would exist, that if you take a couple of stems and you could just assign some meta text to them, and then you hit process or something like that, and the whole mix would be spread out like a little bit more interestingly, as it happens very often. That I might think would be some cool feature for the Beam.
Well,
Would something like this be possible at all?
well, one thing
Do
you can do. One thing you can do right now is you can basically create a session template. So if you always deal with drums and bass and guitar and voices and so forth, and you have basically your standard positions, then you can create a session template in your favorite DAW and route the things to where you would do it, and then take this as a starting point. And maybe in the future, in the Beam, you will also be able to save certain positions as favorite presets. And currently, you have to do that manually for each Beam, or you can use the reset objects drop down to basically snap objects to speaker positions. But yeah, I mean, if you have your standard way of mixing things and you usually get stems, then this would be the starting point if you want to do that. But of course, it's always better to have the single channels and really do an Atmos mix, a proper Atmos mix, which is beyond kind of stem mastering plus a little bit of panning.
Yeah, that's true. But maybe there's room for something in between to
Yeah.
make well, it's so hard to not use offensive language for that. The quick way to Dolby Atmos from a basic set of stems to a sort of at least to a certain level interesting mix with a room impression. That would really do something. And actually, that's a good idea that you started. I might look into this to have this template for, the basic stuff.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea. I will definitely look into this because I have this instrumental album lying around in stereo, so to say, and I created one headphone mix for one track as an experiment, and I thought it could be worth now to look into this and see what it would be in Dolby Atmos, and that would be a perfect candidate for that, because it's only a couple of tracks, and I would say I will be back regarding this, and maybe then there would be some interesting tips for you guys out there to get some amazing results quickly, and especially when you have Spacelab as well at your disposal, because that makes all the difference. And also another thing, as we are on this subject, I don't know how you guys listen to Dolby Atmos. For me, it's Apple Music, and I have now my poor man's Dolby Atmos speaker system here, and I found huge differences in the quality and also in the concept of the mixes of what's out there in Dolby Atmos, and I was really searching the offers in the most variety of styles, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about that and discuss this. It's a challenge, of course, because we couldn't play the stuff back here because of legal reasons, and on the other hand, who would be someone who would discuss the concepts and the quality of Atmos mixes without being offensive, because most probably everyone who's coming up with a Dolby Atmos mix has an agenda for that, and it should not be judged but discussed, and maybe we could help to establish a new level for this art form that would bring a lot of tips and tricks and concepts for everybody out there who's standing before the next Dolby Atmos mix. It would be interesting to get some feedback from you guys regarding that, if that would be of interest. What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I think I think with immersive audio we are now at the position where the world has been when stereo just started. So people were experimenting what can they do with two channels. And well, it's the old and often retold story of the first Beatles stereo album, where some instrument was on the left, another instrument on the right, and something in the middle, and that was it. That was the beginning of stereo. And then at some point someone had two microphones, one pan to the left and one to the right, and it was just standing in the recording room, and someone was doing something, and then the people said, "Oh, what's that?" Now the different the microphones actually create a stage, a stereo stage, and then that sparked a lot of ideas and a lot of creativity when it comes to what can actually be done spatially within these two channels. And now that we have so many channels when it comes to speakers, or that we have the 3 dimensions, versus the 1 dimension of stereo. Mono is 0 dimensions, it's just 1 point, and stereo is not 2 dimensions, it's 1 dimension, because it's just a line between 2 speakers. 2 dimensions it becomes when we have a 5.1 or 7.1 layout, which is spanning around us in an area, creating an area, so to speak. And 3 dimensions we have now because we also have upper plane. Well, lower plane not so much, but upper plane. So we have a 3-dimensional space where we can place things. And not only to place things, but also we have to think about it more holistically. We have to think about if I want to if we start mixing a track, if I want to mix a certain track, how would I want to experience the music? This should be the starting point of thought. How would I want to feel it around me? How do I want to experience the music? This is, of course, genre dependent and taste dependent and so forth, but this is really the starting point. And from that, all the decisions can be derived. What kind of reverb do I have to use? What effects do I use for this and that instrument? How do I place things in space? What volumes do they get? How do I equalize and compress and group and whatnot? I mean, all these things should be derived from this central question: how do I want to experience the music? If I am not if I have speakers or headphones on, but if I am in the place where the music happens, in a physical space, if I'm it doesn't have to be a real concert, but if I am in a space and I'm thinking about what would be the ideal way to experience the music if there would be no constraints on the technical side whatsoever. How do I want to experience the music? And then I would try to manifest this experience through my mixing skills, um, as close as I can get to that ideal imagination I have about the song. So one anecdote about this is I have heard the uh, a jazz a jazz song, basically in a stereo version and in an immersive version on headphones. The jazz version worked perfectly fine because, I mean, jazz in jazz instruments, different instruments or instruments groups are supposed to talk to each other. They are question and response, if you want. This scheme is very often used in jazz, and especially when it comes to improvisation. And this worked quite well in the stereo realm, but when I heard the immersive mix, it all fell apart. Nothing of the dynamic of this jazz song actually worked, because instruments were placed more openly, but they couldn't establish a relation between the instrument groups which were playing at this very moment. There were the volumes didn't match up, and it didn't really feel like a conversation between the instruments. So this is something which have to be taken into account. How do the instruments talk to each other? And this is not only it is especially a feature of jazz, but not only in jazz, but in many genres. You have this kind of back and forth playing, and so you need to think in musical terms and how you want to feel the music, and also need to think about that we always in real life listen in 3D. We always listen in 3D. So um, really start thinking about how do I want to experience the music, and in that way we can actually uh, advance in that. So I think analyzing mixes, coming back to the original question, analyzing mixes is a good start to see from that what's already there, what works great and what doesn't work so great. So and thereby we can hopefully everyone learn some good lessons and improve our mixing.
Yeah, that's really true. And the great thing now is having Apple Music. I mean, though it's just MP4 and highly encoded, but still, just by switching the window, going from your own mix to your favorite mixes or bad examples for mixes is really helpful to learn what can be done and what might be the secret sauce to some great Dolby Atmos mixes. And I can say I really find that the Resonance album by Boris Blank, for you people who are not aware of this, they even got an award for that. Is an example for an electronic album that's really interesting, and it's just amazing sounding. And then the Steven Wilson stuff, I must admit, but not everything, but his own stuff. The Harmony Complex, I think, is the title of the album, is also really interesting, because it's a mixture of electronic and band music, and it's really worth checking out how and where things are happening compared to your own stuff, because I still find the basics are sort of easy, but to get really something interesting going is still a challenge, and it's a fine art. I have a lot of respect for the mixers, for example, who did the Boris Blank album, and it would be also cool to hear from you guys in regards of that. And speaking of Spacelab, that it's really a big help. There's a question: will Spacelab get some love in the future?
Oh.
What do you mean by that? Do you think Spacelab is not loved enough? So, Thomas.
Yes, of course. We always love all our products, so it hasn't stopped, so to say, to receive love. Currently, there are no bigger features in the pipeline for Spacelab. Because of two reasons. First, we have also a lot of other things coming up. For example, the new version of the Dolby Atmos Composer, where there are lots of feature requests, and Spacelab at this moment is still one of the most complex products, and especially is one of the most complex reverb plugins out there. So putting even more into it wouldn't be good at this very moment. But if something, of course, everything evolves, and when the mixing skills evolve in the future of many people, and then they will also communicate ideas to us. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like we have abandoned it. It's there, and yeah, it's still something extraordinary when you just when you are in a Dolby Atmos Composer session and you just load the Spacelab plugin. It connects automatically, usually as 916, and you immediately with one click have a 916 reverb. And then you can start doing so many things, starting with using it as a send and return reverb, but then you can also go next level when you use Spacelab Beam and send different objects into Spacelab, and you do all the panning there, and you get all the bells and whistles and all the extra features of Spacelab for these objects, and these objects can still retain being objects in Atmos as well. So this is such a mega feature, if you will. I think most people still have to explore that possibility to actually find out that there are so many creative possibilities to do that.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, I think that too. And in between, thanks Andreas for the tip with the Bitwig modulators for creating special motions. And Spacelab should go sphere.
Las Vegas.
You mean Las Vegas sphere, or in terms of supporting a certain format with more speakers? I mean,
well, Spacelab supports all speaker formats with up to 256 speakers.
Yeah, so it's actually there, and so
yeah, and it's full, and it's also full sphere. So you have the full sphere rendering for whatever you want. So that sphere is there. But Las Vegas, well, that would be cool one day to see it being used there.
Yeah, it would be interesting to find out how many channels at the sphere they are working actually, because it's. I know a bit about the system, but not enough. So it would be really fun to try that, and yeah, maybe. I mean, NAMM is around the corner. And Vegas is not too far away from Los Angeles. Maybe we can find. We could get a date with the guys at the Sphere and maybe try something out. That would be amazing. Well. Yeah, I can't put my monos in the corners.
I don't know what he means.
Oh, maybe an object to put it in the corner of a room. Is it that what you mean? Luca Rella,
Yeah.
9586.
Maybe a few more words to explain what you mean. That would be great, so that we can answer.
Yeah. Maybe because there's also the discussion. Beam has this three-dimensional panning, like in the round, and some other panners have this sandbox, shoebox
Yeah.
optics, and maybe then it would be possible to put a signal to the left
In
far
Spacelab,
corner of a
well, in
room.
Spacelab, everything is possible. It depends on how you configure it. The Spacelab itself uses a shoebox form room, so and you can place objects anywhere in that shoebox space, if you will. And then it depends on how you configure your output speaker layout. So I know of people who use Spacelab for sound installations. They have some wild speaker placements all over, completely custom, random, and whatever. And then they go and they create their custom speaker layout inside the speaker layout editor in Spacelab, where you can do such things. And then they can basically really move from from one dedicated speaker to the next, and while having a nice reverb, or sometimes even without reverb, just using the panning feature. So yeah, I mean, Spacelab is extremely flexible, and you can use it not only in standard studio environments or with standard layouts, but you can basically create any custom imagination you want. So
Vitamin D. I don't get that.
I also don't get it. K-pop collab with Fiedler and LV Sphere. Well, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, I think the K-pop thing is a little bit of a pun, but the vitamin D and the sphere, of course, there are no windows in the sphere. Do you mean that? So, being in there, you don't get any vitamin D.
No sun.
This,
Well, and
the
would be
sun
nice
of
to have if the objects in Spacelab stay in their position. If you change the room dimension, this would be really useful, in my opinion. Well, actually, they do in a certain way. They do that in relative terms. So when you have, for example, in the x coordinate, the object is positioned at 1/3 of the width, which is the x coordinate, if I'm not mistaken, and then you change the width, then it will still be 1/3 of the entire width. But of course, if you make it smaller, then it's not like if the width is 6 meters of the room and you have it at 2 meters, the object, and then you turn it down the room width to 3 meters, you halve it, then of course the object will not be at 2 meters of x coordinate, but at 1 meter, but it will still be the third. When we were developing Spacelab, we were thinking long and wide about how do we want to do that. And we opted for using relative coordinates, not absolute, because of several reasons. One, of course, is being things get more easy because you don't touch any kind of strange edge cases where objects might be outside when you reduce the size of a room, and you already have, before reducing the size, you already have your objects at the wall, so to say, then they would be theoretically outside of the room, which is impossible to do, which is impossible to render. So then I would have to automatically correct the position of the objects to make it, well, at least be inside the room. And this collides with the possibility of automating an object position, because let's say your object position is automated. You have written your automation data in your host, and then you change the size of the room, and the room then would correct automatically correct the object's position also. So you would have two sources which influence the object's position, and they would conflict. And that's why we opted for that, to use always the relative coordinates and not the absolute. So yeah, that's a compromise, I know, but currently there, when any decision you do, you always get some cases where you say, no, I don't want this. It has to be done a different way. So that's currently the way how we do it.
Yeah, cool. At this point, I might suggest if you have some ideas and wishes where we should go with this live stream, do more like in-depth and special masterclass type of things like today, or what are the most burning questions that you guys have. Otherwise, of course, we will come up with stuff, but you have the chance to interact and have a little bit of a say on what we are doing here. And there's another thing in Dolby Atmos. The done thing is keep all the main instruments to the front to try to replicate a band on stage. Surely Dolby Atmos is never going to replicate a band on stage. What do you think about this? Well, yeah, that's an artistic question. I guess, and a question of taste. So, Thomas, what's your take?
Well, replicating or trying to replicate a concert environment or a concert situation is one way of approaching a mix in Dolby Atmos, but it's not the only one. It really entirely depends on your artistic idea, how you want to present the music, how you think, as I said before, how you think the music should sound if there were no technical restrictions whatsoever. How do you imagine would be the best and most impactful experience of that music? And from there you have to start, basically. And if you think that the concert situation is the best way of doing that, then you should try to get as close as possible to the concert experience, to what you have in a concert. And well, then there are also recordings of concerts. And this is another kind of art, if you will, to record a concert and then make it, bring it into the Atmos world. So you have to do an immersive recording, and then you have to recreate the mood, the atmosphere of the concert, and really get it across. I think this is also a very open field, where there's a lot of development potential. So if you will, but I think if it's done well, you can get very close. And especially when you have a concert, you can also think about head tracking. So if you move your head a little bit, and you imagine yourself being there in this environment, and you move your head, and then everything basically stays in its position, that might also add to the realism of the experience.
Yeah, that's one thing. And the other thing is, well, does it have to be that way? No, it doesn't have to be, because that's the free artistic decision. And I remember the old days when 5.1 was the thing at the AES shows. There were always the discussions how much would make sense to happen in the sides, and how much should be in the front in terms of relevant musical or sonic information. And that led to, wherever I went, I heard this Eagles live concert with a little bit of audience in the back and on the side, and the band was up front. For that situation, that's fine. But on the other hand, with so many possibilities, there could be more that could be done. And I would go to jail if I tell that story now. But so much. There was once a live production which was started for a project that should go to the cinema. Music artists recorded live concerts, and the plan was to go to the cinema with this. And a lot of people involved in that project, and also a lot of people anticipating the results of that, were wondering what would happen if you have the cinema and the sound possibilities of the cinema, the controlled environment and so many speakers. And if you would plan a live concert for that, it could be a truly immersive experience. But when the film came out, everybody was really disappointed, because it was this ultra compressed thing that started from the front, and after 1.5 hours you were like totally faint, because it was also intense. And then I had the chance to talk to some of the people who were involved, and it was so amazing that these discussions that happened there, and the final decisions that were taken were just really people are afraid in a way to do it in an unconventional way, and that's I think that's a big thing. And someone would have to step up. More people have to step up and do some unconventional things, because they can be really, really amazing. I remember, like this year, I visited Stefan Bock at MSM Mastering Studios in Berlin, where the Grammy-winning Hans-Martin Buff resides as well. And Stefan showed me his new pure audio streaming service for immersive audio. By the way, it's you should check it out. It's really amazing. And I was just searching for this album from this Norwegian artist. He played to me, and there was some weird percussion going on everywhere. And then suddenly, like out of nowhere, an ultra deep, intense cello happened from behind. And this was so amazing to listen to, especially in that room, that I thought, well, actually, that's it. That's what more people should do and try to achieve. But then still, to get this connection between the instruments still going when you're doing these extreme things is really something that's a new art, I think, in mixing. So.
Yeah. Also, we should remember that since basically there were DVDs, or even before, when there were VHS cassettes. At this time more, but now less and less. There were two mixes made, one for the cinema and one for home, because you cannot use the same dynamics for home than you use for cinema. So, of course, if you do a mix in a normal music studio and then think that it sounds good in a cinema, you will be disappointed, especially because it sounds overly compressed. It might not sound overly compressed on a home studio, or in a home listening environment, or even in a music studio, but in a cinema, the experience is different because uh, we have a bigger possibility of we have a bigger dynamic range, so to speak, just because of the environment and of the speakers and so forth. So to really make it stand out in a cinema, something like that also requires a dedicated cinema mix. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Oh, one more thing for Andreas, because he asked about Spacelab and objects. Um, there are two types of objects or sources inside Spacelab. One is room related and one is listener related. I just looked it up again because I was doubting about it. That what I explained before is true for room related sources, but if you switch source to listener related, where the position is selected in azimuth, elevation, and distance, they actually don't change their relative position to the listener when you change the room size, except you do some extreme stuff, but otherwise they stay where they are. So because the coordinate system is listener based and not room based, that's why they can stay equal. So if you want something to stay where it is when you change the room size, that would be the way to go.
Right. I'm just a little bit distracted because I try to find the artist and the album here on pure audio streaming, but it's
Are you
all.
are you talking about Morten Lindberg? Norway? No?
It was a female artist,
Oh, female. Okay.
a singer, and here the stuff is ordered by label, so it's not so
Okay.
easy to find it. Maybe in the app, but regardless, if I find it, I will share it next week, next time. So especially next time, it just came to my mind, but I will discuss it with you, Thomas, here, as we are here, because next time I might not be at this place here, but I might be at another place, and so it might be of interest for you guys as well, and would be a cool thing to maybe do the next live stream from one of the famous colleagues of ours in Berlin, and we should discuss how we can do that. I think it should be possible.
Okay.
So that we would have basically then a guest and something to talk about in interview, as you were mentioning the movie stuff, because we know someone in our circle who has just used also the mastering console and the Dolby Atmos composer to prepare an album, a live album for the cinema and for a music release. And we'll find out if he's able to talk about that yet, because this was pretty hush-hush, that project. But I think now it should be close to release, and we will find that out. So, yeah. Otherwise, I would say we could wrap it up for this time.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for the interest in the products, in the interest in Dolby Atmos and how to make your production workflow better with the Fiedler Audio products. Black Friday, the Black period is coming for sure, so watch out for some offers. And the other thing is that now the trial period of all the Fiedler Audio products has been extended to 45 days. So you can find out in much more time if a product is the one for you. And don't forget, when you're doing that and you're using the 45 days, consult also the YouTube channel of Fiedler Audio, because there's loads of tutorial stuff on there.
Yep.
And that would be it for today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Thomas. And I would say bye-bye and see you next time.
Bye bye.